Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for a link to my Amazon store where I've compiled some of the very best items available, including some of my own personal recommendations. Thanks! What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and welcome to my top 10 list of some of the ugliest knives, in my opinion. I do not normally do negative videos. If this is the first time that you have ever come by my channel, most of the time I'm very positive. For whatever reason, my audience finds it really funny when I do negative videos, so I'm going to do one today because, I mean, all of us are the same in this way. There are certain knives that we just do not find aesthetically appealing for one reason or another. Keep in mind, number one, this is a screen-recorded episode. Most of my videos, I'm actually handling knives. I've got over 900 uploads of me actually reviewing and handling knives. If you don't like this style, that's fine. You can check out some of my other videos, but keep in mind here, I really don't like to be negative. So every knife that's on this list, I've tried to kind of split it up a little bit. Rest assured, there are Spydercos on this list, more than one. But I've tried to split it up a little bit and at least only include knives where the maker or manufacturer does create something that I do actually enjoy. I'm a glass half full type of person, so this is not a video that's meant to bash any company. It's just, I'm going to just go over, what I see when I look at certain models and why I don't like them. These are in no particular order except for the last one. The very last knife is truly the most hideous thing that I have ever had the misfortune of bearing witness to. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Real quick before I start, thank you so much to my generous patrons for supporting me during this time. If you want to check out my Patreon, there's a link down in the description. Anyways, the first one up here, I don't like the Gerber Pear frame in general. I really don't like it. I know people like the Gerber Pear frame, or it was like their first EDC folding knife. I do not like the big open holes in the. It looks like the chassis of some vehicle that was just unfinished and left in a graveyard somewhere. And this particular monstrosity has camo all over it. So I saw this picture, and I know, it's like, are you saying you don't like the Gerber Pear frame, you don't like the camo version? Both, but the camo is a true monstrosity. I also don't like serration. So I saw this picture and I was like, oh God, it's not the worst thing in the world, right? In terms of this list, it's certainly not the worst one on the list, but it's definitely not something that I enjoy looking at, let alone using. Next up, I know some people are going, what? So the CRKT Fossil is actually a really functional knife, and it's got amazing action, right? I don't have a problem with the functional design. By the way, a lot of these knives, people are going to want to tell me, well, it looks like that because of this function or this function. I get it. I do not care about the function in this case. Some knives are so ugly that I won't pick them up simply because I just can't look at them. And that's really mean. But just keep in mind, we're just having fun here. And that's all that this is. I could not pull away from the fact that the G10 mixed with the sort of the pitted steel behind it, it just looked like it looked like a lump of crap with some other hunk of metal sticking out of it. That's just what it looks like. I know that there's a blue and black version of this, but the CRKT Fossil was just unappealing to me. If I close my eyes, yeah, it's ergonomic, and the blade is a functional blade. It's got that little hole. The flipper tab is great. The flipping action's pretty good. Some people like it. I just don't find this aesthetically appealing in any way. Moving on here. Oh boy. The Spyderco Shabari, is that how we're going to pronounce this? I don't know what's going on here. This looks like they were like, what should we do for a handle, right? And then they're like, oh, I know, let's just mold the ergonomics, using a piece of silly putty. And then they squeeze it, and then they take the line to the inside of their hand, except what they ended up with was somebody who squeezed it way too hard, and the excess silly putty just came pouring out of the top and bottom of their hand, and what was left over was this hourglass-shaped thing. And the handle itself is not pretty, but then the blade is this weird clip point recurve needle thing. It looks like a deep ocean fish, like something that's meant to be at the bottom of the ocean so nobody has to look at it. Again, owners of this knife, I'm sure some of you guys really like it, but this is not one that is aesthetically appealing to me. Moving on here, oh boy. I love Medford knives. I love them. I love the overbuilt look. I love the big tanky look. This is the Medford Arctica, and it is the biggest jimp festival I have ever seen. There is jimping everywhere on this knife, everywhere. It's not the jimping so much. I mean, the jimping really does make it look kind of funny. And, you know, truthfully, what I've heard is the original design concept of this is that it was hyper ergonomic in so many different ways. You have so much excess handle. This is like, you know, if somebody kept feeding steroids to a Spyderco PM2 to the point where it just was not, I mean, it was so far, obviously, you know, steroids, that's not something you want to put in your system, you know, for recreational use, but it's like they just kept doing it past the point of it being, you know, anywhere near, you know, a normal level or recommended level, I guess, by some medical professional, and just ended up this hulking blob mass. You know, everybody has seen like a bodybuilder that's just been in the game way too long, and his body has been ravaged by steroid abuse. That's what it looks like here. It's just awful. And I mean, the compound blade is cool. There are elements of this knife where if I like covered up part of the knife and looked at it, I'd be like, yeah, it's okay. But it's a combination of everything in that kind of bottleneck area in the middle that I'm just like, ew. Medford, most of the time, Medford knives are very aesthetically appealing to me. And this one is not at all. Moving on here. This is the Kershaw Chive. This knife looks like if the Hunchback of Notre Dame was made out of Easter-colored mini marshmallows. That's exactly what this looks like. The chive alone, I don't like the lines. I'm sure a lot of you guys were like, a lot of these knives aren't really that ugly. You know, like a lot of these kind of have a simplistic look. There are weird things about certain knives, little, you know, odd humps in certain areas of a knife that just, it ruins the whole thing for me. I do not like the jimping area, how it peaks up out of that odd scallop on the top part, you know, in the back. And then there's this huge hump that comes up, and then, you know, the curvature. I mean, it's a recurve blade, but it's all of the curves together in this knife that just make it look like this lumpy, this just gross little chubby little thing. I just don't like it. It's so mean. I just don't like it. And then they made a rainbow one, you know, and it's like, oh, what is this? No, I'm sorry. I don't like this. I don't like the knife or the coloration. Oh no, there's a hinderer on the list. God, everybody knows. Like, this is why I chose this, right? I chose, you know, companies that do make knives that I really, really like, you know, because I didn't want, again, I just didn't want to come down on the company. I am a huge Rick Hinderer fan. Huge Hinderer fan. I have owned over 25 different actual, I'm not talking ZT, you know, or whatever, you know, collaborations, actual Hinderer knives. Over 25 of them. A lot of them I've actually showcased on this channel. And I actually do like the Jurassic. The Jurassic is, as I've said, I think it probably is Hinderer's most functional design. Some of you probably didn't know that he released a few that looked like this in the early days of the Jurassic. And I get what was trying to be accomplished here, right? The Jurassic, right, and the you know, the T-Rex from the Triassic period, or the Jurassic period. Two different time periods there. We have the scale theme going on the G10, which a lot of people didn't like, which is why he changed back to the traditional, you know, texturing on the scales. So it's a combination in this case of the brown, the dark brown G10 that has the scales on it. That's already unappealing to me. And then we have what looks like is supposed to be a some sort of reptilian beast peeking out from behind these scales, and there's a huge hole milled in it to allow that to happen. I mean, in a lot of ways, this is artistically interesting. That's the internal Hinderer fan in me trying to make something positive out of this. But the truth is, the hard, you know, frozen sledgehammer of truth here is that this is so ugly. That's all I can say. I'm sorry. I have to move on. I just can't bear to say any more negative things about Hinderer knives. A lot of people are going to be mad at me here. This is the We Knives and Elijah Isham Eschaton. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, based on an Elijah Isham design called the Eschaton, right? Again, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Elijah Isham has some of the most visually interesting designs that I've ever seen. Absolutely. I mean, the complexity in the design here alone is enough to say, you know, wow, this is at the very least super interesting. It's a lot like I'm not the type of person to be able to walk through an art gallery and be able to pick anything up from it, right? Abstract art, Picasso, a bowl of fruit. It's a picture of a thing. That, I mean, like, maybe I'm not very deep, but that's how I see things like that. When I see something like this, I'm like, wow, that's really complex. The lines are all over the place. It looks like a robot praying mantis to me. This is not an appealing design. A lot of times when I look at a knife, I look for simplicity, and then I look for complexity in the fine details of the simplicity. This is a shotgun blast of complexity. Or no, right? It's like sitting cross-legged in front of a Civil War cannon and having complexity blasted at your face in the form of a cannonball. It is interesting, but it is not aesthetically appealing to me. For some people, it will be. Some people look at this and go, that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen, right? We're all different. We all have different tastes. This does not put the sweet taste on my tongue, so to speak. Moving on here, another monstrosity from Spyderco. Look, Spyderco is kind of like the Toyota of the knife world. They don't all, I mean, like, you know, Toyota's got the Tundra, the Tacoma, the 4Runner, the Camry. They've got the new Supra. Those are beautiful, beautiful designs. And like, I would relate them more to like the Spyderco Capara, the Shaman, right? You've got function, longevity, and beauty in those designs, in my opinion. And then you got the Toyota Yaris of the knife world here. Yeah, I get it. The lines are ergonomic, you know, and relating it to the Yaris, it's not super expensive. It's very gas efficient, right? So we have, you know, I'm connecting the dots for people who understand the analogy and don't need this excess explanation. But this is just ugly. This literally looks like a pelican without wings. That's what it looks like to me. It's just like a pelican laying on the ground with barely anything to keep it upright, right? Because without the wings, it's not balanced. So it's just laying with its face in the sand. And it's just not pretty to look at. This big eyeball sticking out of the top. It also looks like an inanimate object that, I mean, I understand inanimate objects can't think, but if they could, this would be the least intelligent inanimate object I've ever seen. You know, no offense to the designer. Again, no offense to Spyderco at all, because again, it's probably super functional. The lines are probably all very intentional, and I'm sure that it is a functional tool. And much like other Spydercos that I have experienced after initially judging them, you guys have heard me say, Manix 2, the PM2, the Para 3, I don't necessarily like how those knives look, but it wasn't until I handled them that I was like, oh, I get it. And then I started to like them. So perhaps this might be in the same ballpark, but just looking at it, boy, I am not a fan of this. Where are we at here? We move on to, yeah. Listen, Sinkovich designs. This is the ZT 0460 Sinkovich. And some of the Sinkovich designs through Zero Tolerance and other, you know, other knives that were designed by it's Dmitry Sinkovich, they are pretty. I mean, they are really nice to look at. This one I did not like. And it's the lines in general, there's too much of an S shape going on with this knife for me to really like it. He kind of does that S shape, that curvature, and in some cases it yields a much better, you know, the much longer one. I always forget the exact numbers. The 0450, 0452, the big long one that Nick Shabazz really likes. I love that one. I believe that's also a Sinkovich design. Beautiful knife. This is not. And also they chose, I know it's bronze, this brown carbon fiber. It's not red. There's another one of these that's bigger that's red, and that's a little more tolerable. I still don't like that one, but this is brown carbon fiber. Oh, God. Oh, it's like if a dump truck was made out of carbon fiber. That's what it would look like after a while, after it did its job. It's mainly the carbon fiber here that I don't like, truthfully. Sinkovich makes some beautiful knives, but it's the carbon fiber kills it for me. Are we about to the last one here? Yeah, we are. You guys just saw the tip there. So let's go ahead and move on to the worst thing I have ever seen. The Spyderco Matriarch 2 lightweight with the Emerson Wave. I know what this knife is designed for. I understand the design philosophy, the design philosophy of the blade shape, right? The hook and the serrations for tearing and the self-defense and the quick deployment out of the pocket. But I mean, you know, the cherry on top of all this is that it's FRN. I don't like FRN, but the blade, right? To me, this looks like a unicorn and a plague doctor got together and had a baby in serious need of dental work. Oh my gosh, this is so hideous. It's so awful. Oh man, I can't with this thing. I can't. And it's such a pop. I don't think it's necessarily popular in a positive way. I think it's infamous for having this extremely polarizing aesthetic, right? I mean, this knife gets talked about a lot, but oh my gosh, you know, sometimes, you know, function, in this case, it's not so much utilitarian function. I mean, the design purpose of this knife was as a defensive apparatus, right? Sometimes you go too heavy on that side, and, you know, the spot that's left open in every knife design for some type of, you know, aesthetic benefit is just completely ignored, and what comes out the other end is just chaos of the universe. It's just, you know, like a randomizer meat grinder. Just you know, churns. Just you throw a bunch of elements in, and it just out comes this thing. That's it. This is one of the most negative videos I've ever done, and I feel ashamed. But this is the truth. This is what I see, guys. That's going to be pretty much it for today's video. If you enjoyed this, found it entertaining or mildly entertaining in any way, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.